This past spring and this fall, this August, we've heard from countless advocates who pleaded with the body to wait for the release of the census data. On numerous occasions, these same advocates pointed out the inherent flaws in the ACS data and warned that it would exclude and diminish certain communities of interest. As we know, these concerns were valid. That's why we're here tonight. As a reminder, the May map was drawn with flawed sampling data from several years ago. There's a reason why the map deviation was 3 times the legal limit. Now we have actual census data. Why wouldn't we start this process over again? So we know the foundation of this map is built on sound data. It goes to all the questions we've asked this evening. As Moldoff argued in a recent court filing, this map is built on flawed and outdated information, and few alterations will not remedy the underlying issues. Tinkering with lines that ignore the essential elements of community composition are doomed to fail again. That's Moldoff. In the same court filing, Moldoff stated, legislative defendants cannot act if they never violated plaintiffs' constitutional rights and be trusted this time to do it the right way without judicial supervision. Indeed, the rushed process the legislative defendants are adopting now in a naked attempt to cut this panel out of its proper role raises serious concerns that legislative defendants are again ignoring the constraints placed on them by the U.S. Constitution during the redistricting process. And here we are now, past the June 30th constitutional deadline for this body to pass an effective map. The reason we are here tonight voting on this is because what y'all passed in May is not effective. And because of that, per our Constitution, there's another part of the Constitution you guys don't like talking about other than the June 30 deadline. It's the bipartisan commission that has been used many times. Bipartisan, not hyperpartisan, bipartisan commission that has been used many times since the Constitution was enacted 50 years ago. Many times over the past several months, the sponsor of the bill has claimed not to know who's drawing the maps, including the names of majority's retained experts, despite being chair of the committee. How would anyone testifying in these hearings make it to the secret map drawers if the committee chairs were not in communication with the map drawers? Let's review what happened this past week in advance of the special session. The majority party, specifically Senator Sims, said that the public could draw and submit proposed maps on the Democrats' redistricting websites. As of Monday, that's only possible if a user already has an existing account and password with their sites. We heard in testimony today that the site just got reopened again, I believe was someone said in the hearing today. It's not possible to create a new account or submit a map without creating an account. The majority, specifically the representative who chaired Sunday's hearing in Aurora that was attended in person by Representative Kiker and myself, the representative who chaired that hearing stated that all advocates who participated in the spring process were notified of the hearings to invite to participate. Yet at that same hearing, Aviva Pat, executive director of the Decalogue Society of Lawyers, confirmed that is not true. She testified in that hearing that she was not contacted to give testimony, even though she testified at the spring hearings. In fact, she followed up with an email after the hearing stating it was not until 10:29 a.m. Sunday for a 10 a.m. hearing that she was emailed a link to testify. At the hearing in Aurora Sunday, we arrived and the door was locked at 10 a.m. That's accommodating the public? Really? A locked door for a hearing? We heard last night in committee from Mrs. Johansson, who described her struggles to testify at any hearing, not being able to testify. Representative Spain and I were there in Peoria and talked to her in Peoria, not receiving a link for Sunday's hearing even though she filed a witness slip. And finally, last night, through the Byzantine process of the ILGA website to try to get people to relay their concerns, on her third try, she received a Zoom link to testify. God bless her persistence. We shouldn't have to have people go through that just to express their opinions on this important legislation. Democrats have repeatedly said that a new map had not been created before the public hearings, but the purpose of the hearings was to gather public input before making changes. Last Wednesday, I walked into the Belandic building in 600 for a hearing, and like I often do, I go into the room next door to grab a bottle of water, to hang up my jacket, to talk to some of you. And what to my wondering eyes do I see? A bunch of you all hanging out there in 600, looking at laptops that I could see with maps on them. Before the hearings even began. So stop the charade about the fact that you got all this public input before you drew the maps. We know better. You know better. I've seen it firsthand that many of you were looking at your maps before the hearings for this special session even began. This process has been in no way been transparent nor respectful of the public, has been stated numerous times by the majority. MALDEF, UCRO, Muslim Civic Coalition, the Orthodox Jews, so many organizations have come forward to express their united concerns against these maps and this process, and you've ignored them. Change Illinois testified at multiple hearings this year. Change is an organization many of you know. It helped draft legislation for an independent redistricting commission, legislation that was introduced by a current member of the House Democratic Caucus and co-sponsored by 8 current members of the Democratic Caucus, as well as 8 current members of the Republican Caucus, including Representative Spain and myself. Boy, that's a bipartisan way to do things. You have 8 members on your side and 8 members on our side that agree on a redistricting process that Change outlined. Yet, on Saturday, a Change Illinois board co-chair testified at the hearing in Peoria, quote, "In reality, the process this year is worse than the process led by Speaker Madigan 10 years ago." Congratulations. 5 years ago, on this very floor, a constitutional amendment for an independent redistricting commission passed this House overwhelmingly. Currently, there are 31 House Democrats who voted for that measure. 31. Who today are the brave souls of your caucus that will live up to that vote and vote against the redistricting plan we have before us today? Who of the House Democratic Caucus will stand with the people of Illinois, the advocacy groups, the average citizens who want a different path forward for redistricting? This takes 71 votes to pass tonight, folks. Are there 3 of you? 3? 3 who will live up to your previous votes? Who will live up to your campaign promises for independent, fair map redistricting and vote against this partisan, politician-drawn map today? The very type of map Governor Pritzker went back on his pledge to veto that he actually signed. You have the opportunity to make history today, to vote against this bill, to use the power vested in you as a legislator today to change the course of how Illinois draws political boundaries and chart a bold new path forward. To say enough is enough and demand to your leadership a different way of redistricting. You have the power to do that. Are there 3 of you that will do that? Push that no button and stand up for the people you promised to represent. I urge a no vote.